Hello everybody, welcome back to Wolf Camp. We have many animals of the Southeastern ecoregion to cover. We have mammals, we have reptiles, but have you heard bird is the word? So today we will be focusing on birds of the Southeastern ecoregion. First up on our list is the barred owl. Barred owls are found in mature forests, often near water, throughout eastern North America and Pacific Northwest. They roost on limbs and cavities during the day. They nest in cavities of large trees and snags and will readily use man-made nesting structures. They also may nest in old platforms by other owls, hawks, crows, and squirrels. They are nocturnal. They hunt primarily at night, scanning for prey with keen vision and hearing, and flying silently from tall perches. Their hooting call of who cooks for you, who cooks for you all, can be heard all year and is common night sound where they occurred. Their populations have increased and spread since the 1960s. All right, we're here at Crockett Park, and today I want to demonstrate how you properly caterwaul to a barred owl in preparation to the next turkey season. And hopefully that's how you locate a bird. All right, as you've seen from the video, barred owls do this really cool thing called caterwauling. Their calls can often be heard at night, and they sound like a bunch of monkeys. If you've ever been to the zoo, you can hear them chatter, and that's what we call caterwauling. Turkey hunters will do that to locate a gobble. But what we're trying to do here, we want to challenge you. We want to have an owl calling contest. Let's hear your caterwauls. Remember to use the words who cooks for you, who cooks for you all, and tag us on social media. Get your parents' help. Florida 4-H. You can use the hashtag Wolf Camp, or type in Wildlife Outdoor Leadership Focus, and let us hear those owl calls. Here are some real owls doing this. So let's see if you can imitate the caterwaul. Again, I'm challenging you to beat me at caterwauling. Who cooks for you? Who cooks for you all? Our next little feathered friend is the Loggerhead Shrike. It is a migratory bird of prey that requires relatively large openings or fields to hunt prey. Some shrikes remain in the southern tier of the U.S. all year, whereas others migrate from as far south as North Mexico to southern Canada to breed. The loggerhead shrike population is declining because of habitat loss and from conversion of grasslands and shrublands to row crop agriculture or overgrazing. Non-native grass pastures also lead to decline. The most important vegetation component for this bird is nesting cover. They need dense, thorny shrubs and trees, but open areas with herbaceous vegetation and some bare ground are also critical for hunting prey. Here you can see their range. They can be found in Florida all year round. Something that is really cool that you will remember forever about the loggerhead shrike is, I like to call it, the Impaler. Loggerhead shrikes can be seen taking their prey, and they proudly display it upon thorns, barbed wire fences, for a later snack. So what do you think this bird has in common with this next fella? That is Vlad the Impaler. Pretty cool, but pretty creepy, right? Many of you probably recognize that sound. That is the song of our friend the mourning dove. Mourning doves are an important game species found out in the southeastern United States. Actually, they can be found in much of the lower 48 states. But they prefer areas of annual perennial grasses and forbs for feeding, with some shrubs and trees nearby for perching, nesting, and roosting. Interspersed bare ground is a very important part of their diet because mourning doves do not scratch in the litter like a chicken or a turkey. Bare ground is also beneficial for doves to obtain grit. They need small gravel to help them digest their food. Nests are made of twigs and placed on branches of shrubs or trees. You can find nests on the ground where trees are generally lacking. Doves use agricultural areas for feeding on a variety of grass and forbs. They also need freestanding water daily. Our next species is probably your dad's or your great-grandfather's or grandmother's, mom's favorite game bird. This was probably the most popular game bird of a generation. And today they are needing our help. They are a bird that needs great conservation effort. And of course, I am talking about our friend, the northern bobwhite, or as you probably have heard it called, the quail. The bobwhite quail is a stocky game bird about 6 inches tall. They are considered a shrubland obligate, which means that they depend on low-growing shrubby cover, but they also use grassland, fallow fields, and savannas. They need well-developed ground cover for foraging, nesting, brooding, which means laying eggs, and just loafing. Ideally, bobwhite habitat consists of scattered patches of shrubby cover and well interspersed with native grasses, forbs, and bare grounds. Like much of our species, non-native vegetation is very bad. A typical clutch or family is about 12 eggs. Both the male and female may incubate the nest. That's kind of cool. A lot of our male birds do not incubate eggs, but quail can. With nesting primarily occurring between May through August, they eat insects and vertebrates such as spiders, and they can eat a variety of seeds. They like legumes, ragweeds, Lespedeza, a lot of our forbs. Water is obtained through their diet, so they don't need freestanding water, much like our mourning dove. Let's take a listen at how our biologist friend here can imitate the sounds of a bobwhite dove and talk a little bit about how they monitor their population.
One of my earliest childhood memories was when I was 5 years old. I lived in the country south of Hollis, Oklahoma, and one day standing in the kitchen, my mother and I heard a bird whistling outside the kitchen window, and she said that bird whistles its name, Bobwhite, and that whistle has been calling to me ever since then. That was my earliest recollection of a bobwhite's whistle. Learning to imitate various bird calls is something I began to do when I was about 13 or 14 years old, and I've continued to work on that. So I do various different bird calls, like the mockingbird. And the quail is an interesting bird. It has about 13 different vocalizations or calls. I can't do all of those, but some of them are very hushed. But the traditional bobwhite whistle is either 2-syllable or a 3-syllable call. The 3-syllable goes poor bobwhite, or sometimes you just hear the 2-syllable call. And when bobwhite starts singing in late April, That's their way of basically proclaiming their territory. They're trying to attract a mate. They're saying, hey, ladies, I'm over here. And so one bird, when it calls, will stimulate the next bird to call. It's called antiphonal calling. And again, you could hear several different birds whistling in a particular place. And so one of the ways that we use whistle calls in quail management is to gauge what our breeding abundance is. We can go out sometime during the months of May or early June and listen for how many different roosters do we hear calling from a spot. We call this the spring cock call index. We do that from 25 different locations here at the research ranch from the months of mid-May until mid-August. And we would like to hear an average of at least 4 birds per stop, 4 roosters per stop.
Let's see if you can imitate the sound of a northern bobwhite. Again, this is a challenge. Post it on social media, tag Florida 4-H. Let's hear you, bobwhite. If you're not familiar with that sound, that's okay. But this is the Prothonotary Warbler, and they are songbirds that occur in mature bottomland hardwood forests near water, primarily in southern U.S., and they like to visit us through the summer here in Florida. Prothonotary warblers are often found in cypress swamps, along blackwater creeks and rivers. They are cavity nesters, so large, over mature trees and standing dead trees are very important. They can use the old cavities excavated out by downy woodpeckers, but will also use boxes, even those designed for wood ducks, as we'll see later on. Cavities are often found in sweet gum, willow, and bald cypress. Their nest contains 3 to 7 eggs, but they can have 1 or 3 families per year. Warblers feed primarily on insects in the lower canopy or ground level, making mature hardwood forests with complex vertical structures necessary for those insect populations. Their water is obtained through their diet. As you can see, they are a yellow bird. They got their name Prothonotary from the yellow markings around their head and chest back in the day when Prothonotaries, or civil court clerks, wore the yellow drab garments.
We are sitting at River Creek Wildlife Management Area. We are in one of our woodpecker recruitment clusters, which is a site we chose, and we came in and installed some inserts so that the birds would have ready-made housing, so to speak, because it takes them so long to make a cavity on their own. One reason we picked this spot is this was one of the last historic clusters where woodpeckers occurred on the property in the past. So it seemed like a logical place to put a cluster, and it's turned out pretty well. Each individual bird has his or her own cavity that they use. 1 bird per cavity, and they will usually use that cavity each night. The eggs are typically laid in the breeding male's cavity, but both birds will incubate the eggs. They do have alternate cavities. Sometimes a cavity may be taken over by a flying squirrel or some other bird that likes to use cavities, in which case sometimes they'll move to another tree. But usually they'll remain in the same cavity. Sometimes the same bird will use the same cavity for many, many years. Well, red cockaded woodpeckers have an interesting biology and life history. They are cooperative breeders. So a male and a female, the breeding male and female will live in this cluster site and use these cavity trees, but also they may have what are called helpers, which live in the cluster with them, but don't breed. The clusters are typically their offspring from past years who've given up the opportunity to go and become breeders themselves to stay in the cluster site. And what they'll do is they will help excavate cavities, which is a laborious process. They will also feed young and just sort of help with the dynamics of the cluster. And clusters with helpers may be more successful long term. And at some point, these helpers may disperse and become breeders on their own. That often happens. And what may also happen is if there's a male helper here and the breeding male dies, one of the helper males may assume that breeding role in the cluster.
As you heard our biologist friend, the red cockaded woodpecker is a very interesting species. They can live in a group called a clan, and they can contain 2 to 9 birds, but there's never more than one breeding pair. As you heard, he said that both male and female can incubate the eggs. Can you think of another bird species that we talked about that is similar? All right, this is the red-eyed vireo. It is a common migratory bird. You can see that it only spends its time migrating in summer home here in Florida, in the Southeast. It is found in mature deciduous forests throughout eastern North America. They're also found in forested urban parks. They are most often heard than seen, with a persistent song that sounds like they are saying, "Where are you? I am here, over here." Red-eyed vireos have olive green backs with a pale breast and dark red eyes. Red-eyed vireos usually forage in the middle to upper layer of the forest canopy. They mostly eat insects and spiders, and they obtain water from their diet. Let's take a listen. See if you can hear that. Where are you? Here am I, over here. Let's see if you can sound like this bird. I don't know about you, but I hear that a lot. If you heard that sound strikes passion and excitement in the hearts of bird lovers and hunters everywhere. That is the wild turkey. The wild turkey are large game birds found across the U.S. They've adapted to use a wide variety of vegetation types, from deciduous forest, desert shrubs, to open grassland. Their distribution is largely limited only by snow depth and persistence to the north, which limits their ability to forage on the ground by trees or large shrubs. Wild turkeys flock together during the fall and winter. Breeding occurs in spring when males gobble to attract females. Nests are a slight depression on the ground, usually placed adjacent to a log or shrub. Their diet is varied with hard mass, mostly acorns, beech nuts in the fall and winter, soft mass in the spring and summer, blackberries and mulberries. Insects and other invertebrates are important for young poults. That is what a baby turkey is called. The males are roosters, and the males are toms. Toms. Males are toms, and the females are hens. And a young hen can be called a jenny, and a young tom is called a jake. And you can tell this very easily by the outline of the tail feathers. There in the upper corner, you see a tail feather that has 3 longer than the others. That is what a jake looks like strutting out. Strutting is when they poof out and look really big to attract a mate. They also have this specialized feather called a beard. Many people think that is hair, but it's actually a specialized feather, not hair. But we do call it a beard. Very important game bird, highly sought after in the spring. Let's take a look at how we can talk turkey. So, talking turkey, this is something very fun. Let's have a turkey calling contest. If you have a turkey call, let's hear it. Tag Florida 4-H, post to social media if you have it with your parents' help. Let's see who can talk turkey. Here, let's listen to this professional on how to master turkey calls.
Hey everybody, I'm W.O.L.F, and I just want to share with you some turkey tips that help you. Very simple. I would call this Turkey 101, but I'm standing here with our bone collector Soggy Bottom call. This is a new call. It's waterproof, and you can see that this box call, unlike most box calls, will run even in damp situations. And I'm going to show you a couple of different calls that I feel like are very important to learn, the basics. And I think the three most important calls to learn to make, whether it's on a box call or a slate call. This is a brand new one called Popular Girl. It's a little small poplar slate call. It's small, it's got a higher pitch, and the cadence just sounds great. But I'm going to show you the first call I think you need to learn to make, and the most important to kill turkeys in my opinion, is just a plain yelp of a hen. Box calls are one of the simplest to use. All you got to do is use the weight of the lid, and the weight of the lid is enough to make the sound that you need. Just the friction between the lid and the striker blade does that. You just want to run that together. And however you can make this comfortable, there's a lot of different ways to do it. I personally like to hold it in my hand, and I just do this. The yelp has two distinct notes. It starts with a higher pitch, and it rolls over like a wheel. So whether you do it on a box call, slate call, or mouth call, you want that ee-yaw, ee-yaw, run them together.
Eeyot, eeyot. How can you do that? Let's hear it. That's imitating the yelp of a female hen, and that's talking turkey. Our next bird species are the wood ducks. They are spectacularly colored ducks. The males are brightly colored, has a pretty cool looking hairdo, and they can be found throughout Florida all year round. They primarily use forested and shrub emergent wetlands and riparian systems, rivers and creeks, but also may forage and loaf in flooded fields, especially if there is plenty of emergent vegetation. Wood ducks nest in tree cavities, usually within or close to flooded timber, but possibly up to 1 mile from water. Cavity availability is very important for this population. We can make artificial cavity boxes, which I will show you next, and are readily used by wood ducks and have been most likely the #1 reason for the increased wood populations during the past 50 years. They eat acorns in the fall, miscellaneous seeds, and waste grain, especially corn. Here you can see the female wood duck or hen, not as brightly colored, but you can tell her from her teardrop shaped eye color there. If you would like to have a good woodworking project, you can build wood duck boxes. Very easy and very beneficial for this species. Let's take a look on 5 steps to creating habitat for the wood duck.
GCSA-ATV presents our 5 tips to make maintenance practices more efficient. Former golf course superintendent Ryan Beckner started Native Bird Boxes Incorporated in 2013. The company builds and installs bird boxes and establishes birding trails on golf courses and other venues. Ryan has established wood duck boxes on a number of properties. If you would like to attract wood ducks, here's 5 tips to help you get started.
In regards to attracting wood ducks or hooded mergansers, in fact, to your location, one of the things you want to pay attention to is knowing and being able to identify that specific duck. Because not all ducks are cavity nesters. A wood duck and a hooded merganser are cavity nesters. In this particular situation, you'll see a box that's been established for wood ducks. In this particular scenario here is a very small, isolated pond in which they like that isolation. They are a very private type of a bird. You're not going to always find them out in the middle of an open lake, but you will find them in a private little lake like this that has trees surrounding it. So they have the privacy and a place to be able to go to as soon as they fly out of the box for their safety. The second thing would be the style of box to select for wood ducks. In this particular situation is a much larger box, as you will see. It's roughly about 29 inches tall. The cavity size and depth is roughly a 12 by 12 plate. In addition to the entrance hole on it, instead of it being perfectly round because the ducks have to get their shoulders through, it is a 3 by 4 entrance hole. The third thing would be where to hang the box. Our success has shown us that whenever you hang the box on a pole mounted out into the lake, you have a better opportunity to be able to get that species-specific bird, in this case the wood duck, into that box. What we try to do is reduce our predator activity by bringing the box and the pole out in the lake about 6 to 10 feet and being able to mount that large pole in the box to it. One thing you want to pay close attention to is your high water level mark. You may come out here in the wintertime and the lake is at the established level that it is right now. But in summertime, after drainage has occurred from any sort of a summer storm or rain event, you may have a 2 or 3 foot fluctuation. So you want to make sure that the box is going to be higher than what the highest level of that water would be in that lake. Fourth thing we want to talk about is the ventilation of the boxes. All birdhouses need to have some type of ventilation. On our particular boxes that we make, we leave ourselves a half-inch gap all across the back ridges in the box, so that way the box has the opportunity to breathe. As well as on the bottom plate where they would be doing their nesting, all edges and quarter angles are all cut off, so that way we have ventilation come from underneath, entrance hole, and the top sides. Fifth thing would be maintaining the box to make sure that you know the cycle of nesting that is occurring. Know that whenever the wood duck species would be here in your region, be able to identify if they're using the box by being able to tell if the bird is going in and out by looking at the lower quarter section of the entrance hole. You'll be able to see some of their tail feathers dragging in and out, and then color change will happen there. But at the same time, you're able to open the entrance door to be able to see if they are actually nesting in it and creating any sort of a nest by grabbing any sort of pine needles and also the preening from their chests.
Attracting wood ducks to your property can add enjoyment to a round of golf or any other outdoor experience. To help you get started, here are those tips once again. First, know and be able to identify the specific duck you are trying to attract. Second, select the correct size and style of box for wood ducks. Roughly 29 inches tall with a 12 by 12 cavity size and 3-inch by 4-inch entrance hole. Third, hang the box in the correct location on a pole that's higher than the highest water mark and about 6 to 10 feet out into the lake. Fourth, make sure the box is ventilated properly. And last, maintain the box so you know what cycle of the nesting process is occurring.
I would like to thank you for viewing this presentation on birds of the Southeast ecoregion. I'll leave you with this bird here. This is the northern mockingbird. This is actually the state bird of Florida. So now, why don't you fly on over and check out the mammals or the reptiles. Make sure you check out the live raptor videos for live action. And thank you for viewing this. And please continue your sessions and let's have some fun.